Yeah, for sure.
All right, Bosh, we're back. Squeeze the Neck podcast today. We're back in Brighton with my new mate, Rob Nitman. Thanks for doing this, mate.
Thank you.
So, strength conditioning coach, and as you can see from the facility, we're in a, well, you tell us about it, but a mad little facility, right? So, what goes on in here, mate?
Yeah, sweet. So this is our second facility. So we've got two in Brighton. One that's at Waterhall on the north side of the town, which is at Brighton Rugby Club. So we set it up there. We're linked with the club. My business partner, Matt, does the S&C for the team. So we sort of had an in there. That was our first facility, and then about 9 months later we opened this one. Just purely got a really good opportunity from the guys who are in the building, which is Octopus Energy. They wanted some like health and fitness for their corporate team, so we came in and we get to open it up to the public. So yeah, it's a pretty sweet little spot, and 5 minutes from Elements Jiu-Jitsu, so get some of those guys in, and yeah, it's pretty handy.
Shout Elements, we was there recently. That's kind of how we got in touch, I think, right?
Yeah.
Through, and it's, Ascend Performance is the gym, right? Before we gloss over that too much. Your business partner, Matt, that wouldn't happen to be a Matt Sharp by any chance, would it?
No, Matt Dickens.
Okay, cool, never mind. Shout out Matt Dickens. I know a Matt Sharp who was in a similar role I haven't seen for years. But anyways, tell us about you, mate. What's your background? Are you a rugby man?
Yes, yeah. So started playing rugby when I was 7. Just one of those things, was watching it with my dad on TV one day, said, that looks fun, and he took me to the rugby club the next day. I think that was like his dream, because he played rugby as a kid,
right.
As an adult as well. So like when I said I was into it, like we went off, just straight in. Played that up until I was about 22, and I basically just got bored. Like at uni, rugby was really full on. So we would train Monday morning fitness. We expected to gym Monday night we train, Tuesday night we train, expected to gym Tuesday, play on Wednesday, gym Thursday, gym and train Friday, play on Saturday, Sunday off.
And so this is just at uni, this is not even like, it's not paying your bills even?
Nah.
No.
And like, so going from that to then go back to just a club team where it was Tuesday night, Thursday night, Saturday, and a lot of the boys there, like some people would take it seriously, but some wouldn't. I was like, oh, I'm done with this. Can't be bothered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be out in the pissing rain on a Tuesday night. So then I did some strongman competitions, did some weightlifting competitions, and then I got into jiu-jitsu purely by chance, really. Like I'd done a little bit before, but just like a handful of sessions with some friends. And then I was working at a gym in New Haven, and they had jiu-jitsu was on their timetable. And because I worked there, I got it free. So I was like, oh, sweet, like I'll go do that. And just same as everybody says, I immediately hooked.
Yeah.
Like just scratched the itch of what I lost from playing rugby, sort of being able to, like the physical contact, a little bit of aggression, but controlled aggression. Mm-hmm. You make friends with it, and like it just, I just haven't stopped doing it since.
It'll get you,
shit, it? Don't get me wrong.
We all are. We all just pretend we're better than we are for the cameras. But no, how long have you been training jiu-jitsu, mate?
I think I started in 2018.
Yeah, so you're deep in now. Yeah, what belt are you?
Blue.
Bosh, perfect.
Yeah.
So you're not as shit as you're making out you are, man.
Been a blue belt for a long time.
Mate, it happens. Blue belt's where you do most of your learning. I was a blue belt myself for about 5.5 years. Do you know what I mean? So
I'm 5.5 years in now.
There you go.
But it's, I mean, through that you've then got, like with that journey, some elements now. So I was under Tolly Plested, who lives out in the UAE now. And now I switched to elements when I moved to Brighton. I got a job at the university and was like living in Brighton, so it just made sense because their timetable was really broad. So I moved there, and I've been with them since 2018. So I was only at the other place about 6 months or a year.
Nice.
And then, you had COVID, there's injuries since that time. We've opened 2 gyms, I've had a baby, like there's just life happens. And now I'm down to like training once a week, and that is good for me. And I'm like, oh, fuck, that sucks. I want to do like 3, 4, 5 sessions a week. Some boys are doing double days, 5 or 6 days a week. I'm like, I couldn't do that. I'm 35 and beaten up, but at least I'd like to get in 3 a week. You know what I mean?
But I was going to say, you're old and beaten up. About 35 is not old, is it? I hope not. I'm almost there myself. But for here, I identify as a 21-year-old, so we're all good.
I feel old and beaten up.
Do you? Yeah. And what's your one a week? Is that a gi or no gi session?
Gi.
Oh, you're a dirty gi player.
Yeah, I'm a gi guy. Like it's one of those. I prefer gi. I don't know why. I think because I'm a bigger guy, I've got strong grips and stuff. So like I can control people and slow them down when they're fast and whip around me. And then in no-gi, I'm just, they just fly around, and you're like, all of a sudden you're getting choked. But I also kind of feel that I may be better at no-gi because I'm somewhat athletic from all this stuff, right? So a lot of guys my size aren't very athletic, they're just big. So they don't expect it. But so like when I can still go with guys smaller and fitter and faster because I'm like fitter than I seem.
Yeah.
So that helps, but yeah, I prefer the gi.
Yeah. How much do you weigh? You say you're a big guy. You are a big guy, but
Yeah, about 108 at the moment.
proper big guy. Yeah. Because it's funny you say that. I had a fella called John Collins on here. Shout out John, mate. 2-time Olympian in rowing, and he's a big lump himself. And he said that like the biggest thing, and I don't want to, you can watch the episode. I don't want to butcher what he said, but something along the lines of like his stroke rate and whatever helped him be calm in jiu-jitsu, so he could develop faster, which I thought was really interesting. Because like I've trained with the example I gave him, I've trained with CrossFit guys, and they're fit and whatever, but they're still tired after 30 seconds because they're not efficient with it. But he made a good point about like where he's used to being in that pain situation and just staying at a pace rather than going too far one way or the other. Especially
that level, like rowers, like their pain tolerance is unbelievable.
Yeah,
like they get into that pain cave and they stay there for like 6 minutes, and you just. The amount they put themselves through is actually silly. So yeah, I completely understand what you're saying.
Well, that's what he was touching on too. He was saying sort of like it's not as skill based as some other sports. So a lot of it is just nose to the grindstone, sort of like go for it. And like I don't know if he said it or I said it to him from other people I've heard rowers, but like the length counts too.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like when I've done CrossFit and stuff and like workouts on the rower, most of the time the feedback I get is you're just too short. You're not on the rower. You're just not getting enough pull per stroke.
There's a reason most rowers are 6'3" plus.
Yeah, even like I went down to Henley with him and I was walking past like girls in the corridor that were fucking taller than me. And I was like, Jesus.
Yeah, mate. I went on a stag do once with, I used to intern at a pro rugby club, and one of the other interns was a former like international level rower, basically like the grade below going to the Olympics and stuff. So he did international events, but never like the biggest ones. And his stag do, I was the smallest bloke there.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is weird for
Some
me.
big boys,
like,
Some big
when
boys.
I'm the shortest one there and I'm just under 6'3", like I was like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Everyone I was like this. Which just doesn't happen for me.
No, exactly. Yeah, you're around them people sometimes. I used to, like, sometimes you'd be at boxing events, like back in the day when I was boxing. And like most people are draining themselves, like killing themselves to make weight, right?
Yeah.
But then you'd get like some super heavies that were in the over division, and like they're walking around happy as Larry, 6'6", sipping on like sipping on a Coca-Cola, eating a cheeseburger, and it's just like fucking, is what it is.
That's the dream.
But so what was your sort of level of rugby, mate? Was you up there? Was you with rugby by training sort of twice a day?
No, not really. Like it was just we had a coach who wanted to drive really high standards. So we had some players in our first team have gone on, like some of them were academy in a professional team.
Right.
Worcester Warriors at the time, obviously they don't exist anymore, but that was the team that we were linked to. So we had a link with their academy. So some of our first team players would play in their academy team.
Yeah.
And then the rest of us just like the most that the majority of guys in that group have gone on to do is like semi-professional level, which will be 100 quid, 200 quid for a game on a weekend and that kind of stuff, which for a lot of guys, like that's a massive incentive, right? Like a lot of us just play rugby because it's fun.
Right.
And
so that's just extra pocket money, really, isn't it? Because you're going to do it anyway.
A full-time job.
Yeah, but you're going to do it anyway, right?
Yeah, you're going to do it, and then just somebody's going to say, "Cool, well, I'll give you 150 quid to play. I'll give you an extra 50 if we win." Sweet.
Happy days. Yeah,
like,
right. Happy days.
Yeah, really happy. So, got to that kind of a level. I never got paid to play, but I was in a lot of teams where a lot of players in the same team were. So, yeah, it is what it is. I was never in every sport I've ever done. I've been distinctly average.
Yeah.
I get by in sports because I'm willing to work hard.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to just keep turning up and just, like again, coming back to athleticism, I'm relatively somewhat athletic, so I can get by in sport. But just was never shit hot at anything really.
Yeah, I got you. Well, it's funny you say about rugby. Like I've worked a bit in Twickenham and stuff, and so everyone's rugby mad. But what I know about rugby, I could write on the back of a postage stamp. Do you know what I mean? I'm not a rugby guy at all. But I had Big Louis Sutherland on chat. Big Louis, I give him a load of stick because he's a dirty Tottenham fan. But he was a Bellator heavyweight, and like he's a proper lump. He's I believe he's 6'3", 270 pounds. Like a proper lump. And he was like a decent rugby player. And like listening to him talk on here about how he got into fighting, like through rugby, was like. The dedication and like that, he wasn't making a living properly. Do you know what I mean? He was sort of borderline, but he was like traveling here, there, everywhere. And I was listening to him, and like he was telling me like how much he was, or more relevantly, how much he wasn't getting paid. I was like, fucking, like that's a tough life, isn't it? Chasing something like that.
Yeah, it can be, but like even for some boys, just getting like your petrol money is enough. Like that's like a really big sweetener for a lot of clubs. In a certain level where they're not technically allowed to pay players, they'll get by it by paying for their petrol.
Right.
As like a sweetener and stuff like that. And that then, if you're getting 45p a mile and you're travelling a little bit, you actually do make money off it. So it's a weird way round it for
just
clubs.
Drive slowly, is it? Economically. Yeah.
So like people will play for the love of it, and the extra coin is just like a bit of a nice touch. But rugby's a weird one where like there's a fine line of you've made it and you'll always be down here.
Is
like
it okay?
If you break that line, cool, you've got potential. If you don't, then there's like a weird kind of invisible barrier, and different players will have a different invisible barrier. It's the same in any sport, right? Some people will only ever be like just not competitive, and some people will be incredibly good. But rugby's a weird one where a lot of the time, if your name or your face doesn't fit, like there's still that big private school culture.
Yeah.
So a lot of the top teams are fueled by players who come through that system, and if you weren't in that system,
Right.
it's a lot harder to get there. You can, but you have to have caught a break somewhere along the line with a scout being at a game you didn't know they were there or whatever. So it's a harder journey.
Yeah, because rugby as well, correct me if I'm wrong, it's only been professional about 30 years, isn't it? Something like that?
Yeah, 95.
95, yeah. So before that, what was it? Like even England internationals were just, they had a job and stuff.
Full
right?
amateur.
Which is fucking mental, isn't it, when you think about who would it have been, like Lawrence Delalios and people like this? And they're playing at the top level of the game and still got a job in the daytime.
Yeah, they had guys who would, so when they first turned pro, I was listening to a podcast the other week and it was Martin Johnson who was like the guest, and he was talking about a player he played with who would literally like turn up and he'd been like brickying all day. So he'd turn up covered in like brick dust and pug and whatever, and just go out on the field and carry on training, and then like roll on, do that Monday to Friday, Saturday play a game, Sunday was his only day off. And he was just hanging because they'd all obviously go massive on the piss on the Saturday after every game.
Right.
So, and then literally like flip of a coin, all of a sudden it's then just cool. We're professional now. I'm going to pay you so you don't have to go and be a brickie. And then he's like, well, what am I going to do with my time? I was like, oh, well, we expect you to train twice a day and to go to the gym and to eat well. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, I eat a pie at lunchtime because that's all I've got time for. Whatever, it is a mad changeover, and how quickly that professionalism has happened. You say the same thing about like the UFC and stuff, right? Like you look at the early days of that, and like that burst onto the scene like early 90s, but really got popular like late 90s. And now you look at those guys, and then some of them haven't had a job since they were like 16 because they take it so seriously.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and some of them never had a job. They've been sort of sponsored and whatnot, haven't they? You know, like I've had this chat a lot recently on here with jiu-jitsu guys, like how many true pros in jiu-jitsu there are. It's not many because and the example, and I'm repeating myself guys for anyone who watches, is like if you look at someone like Roger Federer playing tennis, he doesn't have to teach tennis privates, he's just a tennis player. Whereas even there's a few that don't, but a lot of the top guys in the world in jiu-jitsu, they still have to teach seminars and jiu-jitsu. That's
how they make their money.
Yeah,
right?
so they've essentially got a job as well, so they're not really professional, are they? Even though they kind of are, you know?
At least they're making the money from that one thing.
Exactly, yeah.
But still, like, you look at even Gordon. Most of his money comes from BJJ Fanatics. Yeah. But that's still work. Like he's had to spend that time to film it and to create the content, and like with them, obviously, but like it's still a job.
And mate, I tell you what, that's probably harder than doing jiu-jitsu. That's fucking draining, isn't it? Being in front of a camera and showing a move over and over. Oh, we didn't get that one right, show it again and all that stuff. Like, you know, that's a tough life, isn't it? But I mean, if you go to the top level of it, like Gordon's a good example again, I think once you've made it to a certain level, that's when you can sort of take your oars out of the water and stuff, and you can chill then. And he's, what is he, 28 or something, retired? You know what I mean? So he's all right now, you know?
Yeah, he's going to be all right for the rest of his life, and his kids if he ever has them or whatever. You know, like he's done so well out of it. And you can, but that's not the story for the vast majority.
No.
You know, and I think that's the trouble with like kind of sports, and it's probably the same in like music and those kind of industries, I guess. I don't know, but people get these ideas of grandeur, being like, oh, I'm going to make it and then I'm set for life. It's like, yeah, but making it's fucking hard.
Yeah.
Staying there's even fucking harder. Yeah. And if you don't, again, if your face don't fit, if you like, he can sell because he's a twat.
Yeah.
Like he will sell pay-per-views. He will sell all his instructions. He's very, very good, obviously, but he's also just polarizing. It's like the Connor effect, right? Like those guys will do very well, but if you aren't that person, then you won't be as good as that. It's just the way it is.
Of course it is, yeah. And also on top of that, when you're saying like set for life, your view on the world changes, right? Because like if you live in a normal house and you've got a normal standard of living, as soon as you start making money, that standard just trickles up. And that, you've got to keep making that money, you know what I mean? If your outgoings are crazy and you've got, I don't know, 4 full-time staff working for you, you've got the big house, the car and all that shit, suddenly you're not set for life anymore in a couple of million you had, are you? You know what I mean? You've got to keep figuring it out. And I think that's where people lose themselves, isn't it? Like if you listen to, like boxers are a great example because like a lot of them like spend the money they're earning. So by the time they're 35, 40 and retired, they're like in a mess, aren't they? You know, it's like
there's a lot of them come back and do those fights at 45 now.
Exactly. Yeah, and then looks terrible, doesn't it? Like my boxing idol, Mike Tyson's fighting Jake Paul soon at 58. You know,
and he doesn't even need it because he actually has done well with his other businesses and his podcasts and that stuff. Like, but and he's fucking Mike Tyson. Like, you could do a speech or two a year and earn enough. But
yeah, easy.
But you like Mayweather lost all his money like multiple times.
Yeah.
You know, so it is hard, and but some people, their perception of what everything costs changes. You know, you get like, we had a client before, he's not with us anymore, but like he was telling me once, he was like, I'm in the middle of booking this holiday, just want something quick, easy, relatively cheap, just like, you know, jump on a plane, go somewhere sunny. I was like, oh yeah, what are you looking at? And he was like, you know, just like a little $6 or $7 grand to Turkey. I was like, $6 or $7 grand?
That's a normal holiday.
I was like, we live different lives, you know? But people, they like, if that's what they're accustomed to, that's what they see.
Yeah.
Like, you know, if I could spend that much on a holiday, I'd be fucking well happy. Do you know what I mean?
Cheap holiday as well, you said. That's just a cheap little getaway. What's he spending on his proper holiday?
Exactly. Can you even imagine? I was like, mate, give me some of that money.
Yeah. It's funny because like I've been personal training and stuff in the past, like when I was teaching, and I remember like clients and whatnot coming into me and like they're trying to put their kid in a private school and they're, you know, sucking their teeth and, you know, just for any half decent, they're like 12 grand a month. And I was like, oh, fucking 12 grand a month. So a term.
Yeah,
and
still.
What's that a term? 3 terms a year,
yeah,
36 grand. You've got to be earning 60 grand to even pay. It's like, whoa. You know what I mean? It's like, how much you know? Yeah. And that's one kid, he had 3 kids. You know, it's like, whoa, we're all over the place here.
So, I used to coach this kid at a private school up in Worcestershire, and he was one of 4 kids at the same school. And they'd all gone through prep into the secondary school through 6th form. And I figured out that for all 4 of them to do it, it cost them just under $2 million.
Just to put them there.
Then the kid was a knob.
Yeah, of course, but that's what they get to, right?
But you're like, just for schooling, $2 million, like for your kids to come out of it. And I was like, and then you got uni, which at that point was like $9 grand a year or whatever. So, like mental. But like that's how the other half live.
I was going to say, what holidays are they going on? Imagine that.
Probably, an easy 15K or something.
We've got to get this podcast pumping, man. We've got to get on somebody's holidays and get out there. Let's live a little, huh? But tell us about your business, mate. You touched on it a bit, but how did this place start and what's the sort of, where are we at with dynamics of, you said you train some jiu-jitsu guys. Is it for the everyman or are you looking at sort of athletes mostly?
So we started it, Ascend as a company started in 2020, the end of 2021, 2022 sort of time. I was working at the University of Brighton as their S&C lead, so to speak, and my business partner Matt and I have known each other for a long time, like similar networks. We both worked in pro rugby and both had these same backgrounds, and we'd met and become friends, and we'd both just kind of figured out we both wanted the same thing, which was to open a gym and train athletes. So we were like, why don't we do it together? Like 2 heads are better than 1. So we launched Ascend. We worked together as a brand for a year before we opened the first gym. And the goal of it was essentially to bring strength and conditioning to the everyman. Like we wanted to use our backgrounds working with professional rugby players and professional athletes from different sports and use those philosophies and put them into the type of training environment where any Tom, Dick or Harry off the street can walk in, and it's not just like training to look good naked. Like obviously that plays into it because that's what most people want, but it's all of the philosophies and principles that are underlaid by our strength and conditioning backgrounds. So we offer like classes. We're moving over to a slightly different format soon, going into like small group coaching, where that's going to be much more bespoke to each individual. Everyone will have a slightly more tailored plan. But then we have classes which are like cardio, metcon, strength. In this space, we offer yoga as well. And basically the plan with them is to try and encourage people to do physical training that helps them in so many different ways. So we want them to be fitter, faster, stronger, happier, healthier in more than just the physical fitness, because that leads into the mental side of things as well. So we still have contracts as well. So we got the 2 gyms where we service public members, and we've then got contracts with local colleges, schools, unis, teams. We've got loads of stuff going on. So it's grown from being just me and Matt. In the first year when we opened, we've now got like a team of like 11 or 12 people who do different bits of work for us here and there. And it's like that basically happened in the space of a year, and it just kind of like went mad. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, now we've got like a really busy business, and trying to figure that out at the same time as keep it going. And we both still want to coach, but we need to figure out how to run a business, and it gets complicated.
It does get complicated. Is that, you said it, you said it there, you still want to coach as well. You don't want to just sort of step back and let it run.
Yeah, well, I just don't want to. I don't want to be that guy who owns a gym and who like sends out emails or messages who people have never met.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like there's gyms you can go to where, like I used to work in a gym before, and there was a guy who there were two gyms, two separate sites, very nearby, and it was in London. And I was working in one of them once, and there were photos of him on the walls, right? And one of the clients came up to me and was like, "Who's that guy in all these photos?" And I was like, "He owns the place." And I'm like, "What? I've never met him." And I was like, right then, I was like, I never want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Like I want to know every single one of our members.
Okay.
And so I don't want to. Like, at the moment, I spend a lot of time, like behind the desk, sending newsletters and doing our financials and like all of those things, and that has to get done. But I don't want that to come at the cost of not knowing the people in the room, because if we don't know the people in the room, we can't produce the best product for those people.
Yeah.
So it's finding that right balance, and then alongside that, still trying to be at home and spend time with my wife and my daughter and those kinds of things, because I don't think that you hear all these things about business ownership being like a real hard slog, and you have to give all of your life to it, and you have to sacrifice. I'm like, but why? Like, I'm in a position I can change that now. Like, I can still have my time. As long as I'm efficient with the time I am working, I can have time off.
Yeah.
So I'm really conscious of that and trying to make that balance right, which is where kind of wanting to stay coaching is kind of where these jiu-jitsu sessions came from. So going back to that, because I've got this space and it's like a 5-minute walk, if that, from Elements. And so I just said to some of the guys there, like, I'll put on some jiu-jitsu sessions, like jiu-jitsu S&C in here, and it'll be cheap, and you won't have to have a membership. You can just come, pay cash, or pay me a monthly, and I'll make it specific to jiu-jitsu, and that allows me to coach with people who are also passionate about another similar hobby, and we just have fun and banter, and we'll put some like ADCC highlights on the TV whilst we train, and it's just good fun. And it offers them an opportunity to do something and get coaching from somebody who understands what they're doing without having to just go to the gym by themselves and just do arms every day like everybody else.
Like everyone, I was going to say, and it's important for jiu-jitsu too, because how many people, I'm sure you've come across them, do jiu-jitsu and they're good at jiu-jitsu, but their workouts around it are just like shit bodybuilding.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they end up injured and they're always stiff and they're always hurting and stuff like that. And I've spoke to a lot of people now on here about different S&C stuff, and I'm interested in it because I've always been into it. Like, I was a personal trainer back in the day, and that, on the gym floor, and I've always been big into sort of like the strength and conditioning side of things. I got into sort of bodyweight stuff and all that game. But there's some people I know that are real high level jiu-jitsu. A very good friend of mine, Reese Bailey. Shout out Reese. He just won a Masters World title at brown belt, and he's doesn't do anything. Literally trains jiu-jitsu. Now, when I say doesn't do anything, he trains jiu-jitsu fucking all day, every day. Do you know what I mean? But he's like, in terms of like the strength and conditioning side, you'll never see him bench pressing. The most I think I've ever seen him doing, correct me if I'm wrong, mate, is like 10 push-ups at the end of a session, just to whatever.
Just because.
Yeah, exactly. And now my mind goes like, how is he not injured and stuff like that? But then the more I think about it, I go, is there sort of a one way or the other approach? Like, obviously strength and conditioning's got its benefits, and that's what I'm going to ask you about. But it's more like where he doesn't do any of it. If he did something else, like he tried to learn how to backflip, for example, I'm sure he'd get injured. But where he's just doing jiu-jitsu, his body's adapted so much to that that it's almost, would he be doing himself a disservice? Do you know what I'm saying, by doing strength and conditioning at this point?
Yeah, potentially. And there's basically two complete opposite schools of thought. And one is that you need to be doing the thing which is like the most specific, right? So if you want to get good at jiu-jitsu, you have to do jiu-jitsu. And I'll put that on, if anybody follows me on Instagram, you'll see that on all of my posts, is like, being a great athlete will get you so far, but if you're not actually good at the fucking thing, like if you're a great athlete and you play rugby but you can't pass a rugby ball, you're fucked. Like, and it's the same in jiu-jitsu. Like, if you're a great athlete but you don't know like how to retain guard or whatever, then like, you're not going to be good at jiu-jitsu. So you can just go down that route and become so well adapted to it that actually doing this thing might be the thing that causes an injury. So like in Reese's case, that could be it. Like, where he's so well versed and well adapted to this thing, actually it's no point in changing. If he doesn't need it, if he's strong enough and if he's fit enough and if he gets everything he needs from jiu-jitsu, then fine. Like, maybe don't even risk adding something else in. But I think for most people, the benefit of the strength and conditioning side of it, from my perspective, is the injury reduction. Like, it's just making you less likely to break. Because if you break, you have to take time off the mats, and that's not getting you better at jiu-jitsu. So improving the strength of like your joints, your tendons, ligaments, like muscles, all of that stuff is going to have an effect. And then not only then also the physical adaptations you get in terms of being fitter, faster, stronger, more powerful. Those things will allow you to be better on the mats and to train more on the mats because you can recover faster and all of this kind of stuff. So I think it has a really big place. And I think going back to what you're saying, a lot of people just do it really fucking badly because we're in a world where there's almost too much information now. You can open up Instagram and there's 1,000 accounts of people who do the same stuff as me telling you that their way is right, which, you know, and there's nothing to say that my way is perfect, but I think there's so many ways of doing it wrong. And within jiu-jitsu, what you often see is somebody who's basically just selling a powerlifting program and they've slapped BJJ on the title,
Right.
a bodybuilding program and they've slapped BJJ in the title, because it's a bit of a buzzword now. It's become really popular, and there's, like, you know, BJJ gyms around the country are getting busier and busier, which is great. But with that comes more people who are just like, oh yeah, I'm a PT. That looks like people will buy it, so I'm going to sell it. So I think there's then the other issue of people being way too hyper-specific just on jiu-jitsu and making it try to look like jiu-jitsu in the gym, and that's just fucking nonsense.
Yeah.
Like, they need to be separate. Do your jiu-jitsu on the mats, do your S&C in the gym, and just generally, if you're getting a little bit stronger, a little bit fitter, and you're working through good ranges of motion so your joints can tolerate it, that's all you need. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, but that seems to be the consensus. I've had a few people on here now. I don't know if you know Charles Allen Price.
Yeah, I've never met him in person.
Jay Bell, these guys, great guys, and they say things slightly differently. And you know, won't speak for them. The episodes are up, but they're, you know, it's all very simple, like what you were explaining, right? When you're training to get stronger, and then go and do jiu-jitsu with your stronger body, essentially. You know what I mean?
It doesn't have to be complicated, right?
Exactly, because that's another thing. And Charles posts this a lot, is things of like, you know, people like doing a De La Riva guard on a fucking cable machine and shit like that, which is
just fucking dumb. And that's why those guys are great. Like, I regularly just, there's so much bullshit on the internet, and there's like a few guys who I will happily like signpost towards and be like, if you need good information, go to these guys. And yeah, it's Jay, it's Charles, it's Dave Allenson from Foundations Performance, it's Michael Wheatman from up in Manchester. Like, there's a number of guys in the UK who are like very good in these areas. Like Brotherhood Performance, I can't remember his name, but like his stuff's really good. And like, you know, Will Wayland, there's a number of guys, and I don't have any issue in signposting towards them and saying, you can buy their stuff, you don't have to buy mine. If you go there, you'll get well looked after. It's a good product. But the problem is that around that, you've then got other people seeing those things and being like, oh, I could do that. And it's just dog shit. Like you know, taking a gi to do pull-ups off. Like, yes, that might help you grip, but so will just doing fucking farmer's walks or like any other grip exercise. It doesn't have to be super fancy, look like jiu-jitsu. Just get stronger and it will carry over.
Yeah, well, you can overdo it as well. I would assume you can overdo it. You know, if you're gripping the gi all the time anyway, you probably don't need to come in the gym and grip a gi. You're probably going to overdo it, right?
Yeah, 100%. Like, one of the guys I was working with, George Stevens, so he used to do some like functional pattern stuff in America when he lived over there, and then he moved back here, and he actually messaged me. He was like, "We've got a problem," and I was like, "What's up?" And he was like, "I was in a comp and my grip burned out," and because he'd not been doing much, I'd put like a bit in, and it was too much for him. Right. So then his grip got worse because he was doing so much gi, like training gi every day. Plus, I was giving him extra, so he took it out and he was fine.
Yeah.
So like, it's, you know, people can take specific way too far. And yeah, like doing all the fancy rolling around on a Bosu ball and, you know, using those silly little elastic band dopamino things, and like, just lift some weights, and do some fast, active, explosive movements, and do some cardio, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, don't overcomplicate it.
Yeah, exactly. And what's cardio look like for you guys if you're training with jiu-jitsu? Because that's, again, a complicated thing, right? Because how much your rolling plays into that too. And to be honest with you, like over the last few years, I don't do an awful lot of cardio per se. I do things like I hit the bag and stuff for like rounds, or I'll just go and hit the bag loosely for sort of half hour as my cardio, so I guess I'm doing it. But that's another thing, you know, it's like people turn into power lifters and do a bit of jiu-jitsu to help their jiu-jitsu versus you get the other end of that too, where people want to be fucking marathon runners, right?
Yeah.
So what does cardio look like for you, for your guys?
For me personally, I like to play more on the fill the gaps of what you're not getting. Okay. So I think the best way to get better at jiu-jitsu is to do jiu-jitsu. So if you need to get like sparring fit, spar. So do rounds, do multiple rounds, but pick the right partners. Where if you're a blue belt and you're going with a brand new white belt, wrong partner. If you're a blue belt or like a late blue, early purple and you're going with a high level black belt, wrong partner, because that black belt will just tie you up in knots and make it really easy. And if you then go with a really new white belt, they're not the right person because they're going to do nothing. You need somebody who is like competitive enough to you, but where you each allow each other to work. If you're just stalled out in this stalemate because you're basically the same grappler, then you're doing nothing for 6 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever the round is. So you need to pick the right partners in those sparring rounds. And it might be one round with your perfect partner, then a round with that black belt because you're going to be scrambling, defending yourself, and then a round with the white belt where you can work on your attacks and then back to your main training partner. That would be great. And some people don't have that luxury. But in here, I like to go with, filling the gap. So the thing we don't get is like the aerobic conditioning, which is the longer, the steady state, the nose breathing, the zone 2 type boring work, which has become really popular. It's popular for a reason, that's because it works. So if we get really aerobically fit, you improve like your resting heart rate, you can recover quicker between rounds, you can recover quicker in rounds, recover quicker between training days, and that then allows you to train more or train at a higher intensity. So when I do put conditioning in programs, I push more towards that, especially away from competition. Like, if you're just off camp, so to speak, do more of that. As we get closer to a competition, put more like the higher intensity interval type stuff, more of the anaerobic, just to make sure that the body is prepared to go into those high heart rate zones, just in case you do, because you don't want to go in underprepared.
Yeah,
that's the worst.
That's the worst. Yeah. Or overcooked too. That's a terrible one. If you've ever been overcooked, guys, fuck me. That's not a fun place. But it's like you say. It's as simple as it sounds. You're basically preparing the body for it. Versus a lot of people, as we've kind of touched on, they sort of train like a power lifter, train like a sprinter, train like a marathon runner, and do jiu-jitsu, and then wonder why it don't work for them. Innit? You know what I mean? Whereas if you, for instance, let's go round number sake. If you could squat or bench press 100 kilos, you're probably better off doing less, in my opinion. Would you agree with that? And just doing it smoothly and looking after your joints and making everything grow together. Yeah,
you don't want to like test every time you're in the gym.
Yeah.
And so if your best is 100 kilos, like you see it with all the 16-year-olds. Like we coach at a college, and every time they come in, they want to test their PR. And I'm like, just stop. Like you're better off. Right, what's your PR? 80 kilos, fine. Do 70 and give me 3 sets of 5. Like that will be so much better for you than just trying 80 every time. Oh well, I want to hit 100. Yeah, I get it, but you will. In like 4 months' time, you're only 16. Like you will get so fucking strong
16,
so quick.
Yeah.
Like, but like that's the best way. Like if your best is here, come down to here and train in that bit.
Yeah.
And then it's raising the floor rather than raising your ceiling. So if your ceiling is always here, if your floor gradually gets closer to it, then eventually that ceiling is going to move.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to chase this the entire time, which is so hard on the body, you're better off sitting down here and bumping that part up rather than chasing the top of the line.
I like that. Raise the floor, not the ceiling.
Just makes sense.
Yeah.
Like it's the similar way with, like when you're a savings account. If your saving goal is 10K, don't wait until you've got 9 grand in your pocket and pay it all in. Pay in a tenner, pay in a tenner, pay in a tenner, and eventually you'll get there. Yeah. Like it's that way of doing it rather than just waiting and trying to go all out.
Yeah. And what would you like with the jiu-jitsu guys? Do a lot of the jiu-jitsu guys come in and just go, whatever you say, or are there some no-alls about?
Most of them are pretty good.
Yeah, they are.
Most of them are pretty. There's a couple of guys from Elements who have done like a lot of training previously, and like some guys ask a lot of questions. So Robert DeSerens, he just asks a lot of questions, but not to be a knob. He's just genuinely really interested.
Yeah.
He reads a lot around strength and conditioning. He loves it. Like he's really intelligent, and he will just message me every now and then. He did it a couple of weeks ago. He's like, "Can I have your opinions on this?" And it tests me. I always message him afterwards. I love it when you send me these questions because it makes me think. But most guys just come in, they'll have a look, we put them on the TVs and just say, right, cool, here's the session for today. And unless there's any like things where you're like, okay, cool, like you've got a dodgy knee, let's swap this for that. Most of the time we just crack on. Because a lot of them it's an environment thing. They're in a room with their friends, like they're doing something which is kind of cool and fun, and they're just happy to be in the environment rather than coming in and being like, oh well, I saw so and so do this on Instagram. We don't really get too much of that at the moment.
That's cool, isn't it? You want that. I think it's big as well, where you've got like a little group of them together. You kind of bounce off each other, don't you, like you do on the mats. But you said like you're only getting down once a week at the moment, like you ideally do sort of 3 times. But are you a jiu-jitsu guy for life now? Are you in?
Yeah, you're in. Yeah, it's like for me, it's like I said, it's kind of replaced that rugby.
Nice.
And it's never quite been the same as rugby in terms of that camaraderie and the team side of it, because it is individual. Like you train with similar people all the time, and we've got this nice little morning group who I train with at Elements who've got our own like WhatsApp chat and all this kind of stuff. And they're my guys. Like I go to the midday classes and they're fun, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same. Like I love my morning crew. They're the guys. And so I don't ever like want to leave that because I feel a bit like a traitor, to be honest. And like jiu-jitsu for me, the physical sides of it are great, but I get such massive mental health benefit out of it. I always feel if I haven't trained, I can know when I haven't been doing as much jiu-jitsu because like I just feel a little bit like antsy and weird and fidgety and not quite me if I'm not getting in on the mats. It's just something about it.
Mate, I can relate to that completely this morning. I said to you, I've been training in Brixton this morning. Shout out to all the boys in Brixton, New School. But when that alarm hit this morning, I was like, I don't want to train today. Yeah. And as I'm just sort of getting myself together and brushing my teeth, my mate Big Char, shout out Big Char, messaged me saying, you in today? And it's like, well, I am now, right? I can't fucking leave it now. So it's a big thing in it in jiu-jitsu. And because where I've been in boxing gyms and stuff before, it's not quite the same. No. Boxing's a bit colder. It's a bit more of a tough guy environment. People are sort of like, they want to be the big dog on the mat. Whereas jiu-jitsu is a bit different, isn't it? You know, it's more of a friendly environment and there's a hierarchy anyway. We all know the score, so who cares? Do you know what I mean? It's one of them, innit? You know?
And you get humbled every time you're in.
Exactly,
It doesn't take much. Like you can, some days you're in and you're the hammer. Like if you pick the right rounds and you come out and you feel like, fucking right. Like today was my day. And then other days you're like, fucking why'd I bother turning up? Like, did I do any jiu-jitsu today? I felt like I just got crushed. Yeah. And that's good because we need that. Like as humans, we need regular failure to help us to like, you know, stay on top of things.
And that can change minute to minute as well. You can be flying high and around, someone sweeps you and then it's fucking panic stations again.
Yeah, literally.
I mean? Yeah, I said recently I had one, I was up in Manchester. I forget the nice guy's name. I would shout you out if I knew, mate. But he's, I was having a good round against him, right? Yeah. And I was more advanced and whatever, and I was playing around, and I just dangled my neck as like a fucking, just feeling myself a bit. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And he put a choke on that nearly. I mean, I was seeing stars. We was rolling around like lunatics for about 45 seconds before I eventually just about managed to get out of it. But like when I say panicked, I mean I saw the light at the end of the tunnel, bro. And it was like, what? I got humbled there almost, you know.
I went out a couple of weeks ago with one of my main training partners, Johnny, who like. He manages to train like quite a lot more than me and stuff, but he's done this choke on me like a number of times and I always get out of it, so I just didn't give it any respect. And then I woke up and he was like, you okay? And I was like, what the fuck happened? And I was like, okay, cool, need to respect Johnny's chokes now. Like, and everybody does it, you know, like people will, like, especially when you train with a similar group of people all the time, you learn each other's games and you know what they're dangerous at and where you might be able to like pass or whatever. But eventually, like they learn from that too, so like they're going to plug that hole. So unless you continue to adapt, like you don't want that stall out of your development to be so like samey. Every single time you go in, you just like, okay, I'm going to use this takedown, I'm going to try this passing sequence, I'm going to try and get this one choke. Like that's cool if you've got one thing that works really well, great. But realistically, you want a big toolbox, right? Like because sometimes the hammer don't work.
That's it.
But yeah, I think that's one of the joys of jiu-jitsu is that it humbles you always. It's physical, great community most of the time. Like there's very few dickheads on jiu-jitsu.
And they get wheezed out as well. They don't stay in gyms. They get pushed out because you know you can't have that in a gym, can you? I've been around gyms, and to be fair, not many, but over the time I've been doing jiu-jitsu now nearly 10 years, and in that whole time, or over 10 years, just about 10 years, they in that time I've seen about only 3 or 4 that have been told like. Doors over there, mate. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But it does happen because it's not that kind of vibe. We don't need that energy on the mat. Not to sound a bit hippified, like the energy on the mat. No. You know what I'm saying, right? Yeah, you don't 100%. Need the dickhead that upsets people. Yeah.
And Yusuf's great at that. So owner of Elements, like he's really good at just, you know, basically being honest and open with people on the first instance and being like, this is how we are as a club. Like if you're going to come in and bring certain type of energy, then that's not how we do things here. And he has kicked people out.
Yeah, good on him.
And I think it's the right way of doing things because otherwise it's the, you know, sacrifice the few for the needs of the many, right? So if that one person doesn't get kicked out, how many people are you going to lose? Yeah. 10, 15, 20 members. That's it.
And that can help him too, because if he's not a complete dickhead, he'll change his mind and go to a new gym and start fresh, won't he? Do you know what I mean? And do things differently, because it can't be fun being that guy that upsets people, can it? No. And there's probably some people watching this going, fuck you, you're that guy in the gym. Yeah, all right, sorry, I don't mean to be. But whenever you go into a jiu-jitsu gym, guys, if you haven't been in there, there's typically, I mean, again, it's not always black and white. It's rare, but typically you go into a jiu-jitsu gym, there's a good energy. Like when I came down to Elements with Dominic for the podcast and stuff, like couldn't have been more more welcoming. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like inviting me in. I did the class before we did a podcast. It was just good vibes, you know.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's we're really fortunate with Elements there. And like I said, there's other really good things about it. Massive timetable. They've now got a gym in Haywards Heath, which is basically where I live.
Nice.
So like I said to Yusuf when he opened it, I'll be there all the time. I've been once because I'm just so fucking busy.
Yeah.
But like it's great, and they're the right people. Whatever class you go to, I never go to the evenings because I'm always here or at home. But like the mornings and the middays, like, they're great people, man.
Yeah.
Like, they're really great people.
But like you said with the coach, they'll understand that too. Like again, not that I'm bashing boxing. Boxing was my first love. Do you know what I mean? But like if you're missing sessions at a boxing gym, that don't fly. That's like fuck you. What are you up to? Do you know what I mean?
Sparring.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas like in a jiu-jitsu gym, people get it, right? You've got lives. You like you said, you've got missus and kid. You know what I mean? There's priorities here, isn't there? And you still want to train, so you can do it forever, really, essentially.
100%, and I hope to. Like, obviously, I don't want to. The good thing now is that because I co-own this place, I can do the things which will allow me to continue doing jiu-jitsu.
Right.
I'm hoping that jiu-jitsu won't be the only thing I do, because that's when you start to see that with like the older guys who come on the mats, they start to pick up more injuries, and I can hopefully use this place to keep me injury free, which allows me to continue to do jiu-jitsu, which is it's a hobby, and it is that for me. It's fun.
Yeah.
And you can get really easily caught up, right? Like some of the guys in today they're competing tomorrow. And like, why aren't you competing? Like, you should be competing. I'm like, yeah, dude, but I've got work. And then I've got something going on with my daughter in the afternoon. Like, that's my life. You're 23, you've got nothing else going on. Like, and that's cool for you, but I think I sometimes get caught up on that. I should be more competitive. I should compete more. I should train more. I should do all this. It's like, yeah, but you're 35, wife, kid, 2 gyms. Like, just, it's okay to be where you're at.
Yeah, of course.
And jiu-jitsu is great for that, especially, again, Elements, super wide timetable. So I don't have to make my life fit Elements. Elements fits my life, and that's perfect for me.
Boom, shout out Elements, great place. I'll definitely be down there for some roles again, especially with Dominic, what a guy. I was going to ask you about like fights and stuff. Are you into other martial arts? But from what you've just said with like the gym and stuff, I'm assuming you don't have much time for anything else.
No, like I've done a few. Again, when I first did a couple of jiu-jitsu sessions years back, I did some like striking sessions, but never really anything major. I've coached some boxers and that kind of stuff, but I've never really dabbled. Like, I like the idea of being able to do those things and being like physically capable if shit hit the fan and whatever reason.
COVID part 2.
Yeah, but it's just one of those things where it's just, I don't know, getting punched in the face has never been high on my priority list.
Shouldn't be. Neither should it be. I didn't used to be this ugly, guys. I promise you. At one point, I was, half. If you squinted the right way, I wasn't bad looking. But them days are gone. But do you watch UFC? Are you a UFC guy and anything like that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
Follow
there's. I was going to say I keep asking the questions on here, but they're relevant because we've got such a. I was going to say a mess. It's not a mess. It's a good problem to have at heavyweight, right? You got your Stipe, John Jones fight happening. You got Aspinall waiting. Yeah. There's a big mean Brazilian at light heavyweight that might come up, might not come up. What's your views on the heavyweight, mate, and what's going on up there?
It's finally interesting again, right?
Yeah, big time.
A few years ago, it kind of dwindled out, and it was great for a few years, and it died, and it picked back up, and it died, and I think it's exciting again, because I think, Stipe, John Jones should have happened years ago.
Yep.
I think, in my opinion, right now, based off where they're at, there's a clear winner. But I think, there's so much excitement. Like, Tom Aspinall he's the real deal, man. Like, and it's been clear since his first fight in the UFC, like, he's a massive prospect, like, and huge talent. And seeing him now being able to transfer that through, and some of the performances he's put on, like coming back off that ACL and winning the way he did, like, fair play. Like, that takes some stones to come back and just put on a performance like that, moving the way he does. Alex coming up, man, who beats that guy?
It's tough,
I know Israel has, but he is next level monster.
I've got to think the Israel one's a weight cut issue though, right? He's huge.
Think.
I can't, if they fought, I've said this on here before as well, so I'm repeating myself, but like, if they fought at 205, I don't think that's even a close fight.
Nah.
Do you know what I mean? I think Alex shouldn't be fighting at middleweight.
I mean, you look at how Alex has handled every other 205 so far, and you look at Izzy when he came up for like one 205 fight, right?
Yeah, against Jan.
And like Jan put the weight on him.
Did.
And he struggled, and so that it was. He always kind of said it was probably going to be a one-off, and he went back to 85 because it's an easy cut for him. But Alex, man, apparently he's just like the biggest dude. Like, I think it was somebody in here, Jordan was telling me he met him at Hodger Gracie's, and he was like, holy fuck, like just built different, like literally. And he just looks so calm when he's in that cage. He looks like there's no problems, nothing phases him. Like this weekend against Khalil, he's just like slipping out of the way of stuff. Like his facial expression doesn't change. You're that guy.
Yeah.
Mad, right?
When it's real, I think, isn't it? You know, a lot of people pretend things, don't they, or whatever, but like, I think he is just that guy, isn't he?
He is just that
and
guy.
I think by the look of him next to Israel, he's about 6'5", isn't he? Do you know what I mean? He's fighting. Like for him, with a frame like that, to be cut into 84 kilos, which is middleweight, like that, you know, that's got a shelf life, isn't it? You can't do that much, you know, and fight at that level the next day.
Yeah, and he ain't young.
No.
He's like late 30s.
I think he's coming up to 38. He's well, the interesting thing with that was the John Jones thing, because I think him and John Jones are about 3 weeks apart in age.
Oh, really?
They're like basically the same age. It might be closer than that. Maybe someone can comment and let us know. But yeah, they're essentially the same age, which is nuts because John Jones has been. Well, I suppose they've both been fighting forever. Just John Jones has been in the limelight, right?
Yeah.
But I want to see him fight, man, because. Sorry, I want to see him fight. I want to see him fight Aspinall, man, is what I meant to say. Yeah. And I was up in Manchester recently at Henshaw's BJJ. Shout out Big Steve. He's the owner of that. He's a black belt under Tom Aspinall's dad.
Oh, right.
So he's been around Tom, and he said like he's fucking special, you know.
He's just, again, like you watch him, he doesn't move like a heavyweight. He bounces, he floats, he's in and out, and his strikes land so fast, and his jiu-jitsu's top level. He's been training under his dad his entire life.
Yep.
You know,
how's he do against John Jones?
Man, it's interesting. I think he does well. I think if anybody in that division is giving John Jones trouble that isn't Alex coming up, I think it's got to be Tom, because he doesn't fight like a heavyweight. And you know, the people who gave John the most trouble at light heavyweight were like Gustafsson. Again, doesn't really fight like a typical light heavyweight. He was light, he was floating, he was striking and getting out, and giving him like difficulty through giving him different things. And I think Aspinall is so different that I think he'll give him some real problems. I
do, because I feel like how John Jones is the greatest of all time until proven otherwise. But I think the way Tom Aspinall keeps running through people, at a certain point, I'm a bit like, he might fucking do that to John Jones. You know what I mean? He might just run it. If he could get him out there in a minute, and it wouldn't be too much of a surprise to me. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the difficulty, right? Is that like I often find like the UFC do such a great job with their like the countdown shows and that, where you watch all these things and you're like, oh, fucking, that contender does have a chance. And realistically, they haven't. Like a lot of the time you see it and, you know, they just get wiped off the fucking floor. But this one, realistically, going into it, I would love to see what the odds are. Because if the odds makers are actually fair, it's pretty even. It's
pretty even. It's got to be. Because I think the longer it goes, I think the more it benefits Jones.
Yeah.
You know? Because I think he's proven time and time again. Like you said about Gustafsson, he had a tough fight with him, but then they fought again and he smashed him. Do you know what I mean? And I think he's just that guy, isn't he? Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, at a certain point, it's over. Do you know what I mean? You can't fight till you're 60, can you? Do you know what I mean? At a certain, one day he's going to show up old if he stays long enough. But
just imagine how many fights he would have had if he didn't have all of those fucking problems.
What do you mean if he didn't snort coke and slap women?
Yeah.
He'd have been in the UFC a lot longer. But then again, he might have lost. He might have got broken down more. So it is what it is, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? I just hope we got to see it because they're talking about him fighting Stipe and retiring. We have to see him fight Aspinall. To me,
if he fights Stipe and retires, people will just they'll just tell him he's avoiding Tom.
Yeah.
But then if he stays and he fights Tom, if he then wins, it'll be you're now avoiding whoever. There'll always be that story.
But if he beats Tom, then you can retire as the GOAT, right? You've got nothing left to prove.
I'd say you have to have that fight. If you beat Stipe, which I think he does, I think you have to then fight Tom to then just be like, yeah, cool, I dominated 205, I've dominated.
Drop the belt.
Yeah, just be like, yep, sweet. I'm the greatest of all time. See you later. Good luck.
Yeah. I'd like to see it because part of me goes like I'd like to see him retire undefeated as well, just because.
Yeah, I kind of would, but I also want to see Tom win.
I do. Yeah, exactly. yeah. It'd be interesting. I want to see Tom fight Pereira. I want to see him fight them all. You know, how's that go? Tom versus Pereira.
Oh man, I mean, I think it's fairly similar to John. Because Alex is big, he's long, doesn't have the wrestling, but like. I don't know.
Tough fights, man, isn't it? I just hope we get to see him. I'd love to see him. Well, Tom Aspinall spoke about it and Dana's nixed it, hasn't he? But it would have been great to see Tom Aspinall fight Pereira on the same card as John Jones versus Stipe, wouldn't it?
Would have been insane.
Imagine that, like the winners fight each other. How fucking nuts that would be. And the losers could fight each other as well if they wanted to. Why not?
To get back into contention.
Do you know what I mean? I think John Jones is on his last legs now. Not physically, like as if he can't do it anymore, but I don't think we've got many more. I think it's one or two, and that's it, you know?
People are also just kind of like, it's a little bit of the Conor thing, like just bored of his story. Like you retired, you unretired, you did this, you came out, you had this fight, and then you got injured, and then like just stay relevant or don't.
Yep.
And I think he's becoming a little bit irrelevant because
Yeah.
he's having so long between fights. And yeah, he tore his pec, like, can't be helped.
No.
But, like, when people are that inactive for that long, you just start to get to a point like, just, you know, bring in the incumbent, and that's Tom.
That's it. I agree. And I think with Connor's a good point too, because I just think that's gone on too long now.
People are just so bored of him.
The magic's run out.
When was the last time you fought? Oh, and you lost. And the time before that, you lost. So, like, people are a bit, you know, I'd never say it to his face, obviously. But, like, I think people are just a little bit done with the story. Yeah,
I think his time gone, isn't it? The magic's gone. And, like, it's obvious to say it out loud, but it's like, when he was coming up, he was 25, he was on the dole. He was like hungry, he was special.
He needed it.
And he was just like, he was rising. Whereas now he's married, he's got more money than anyone you've ever met. He's got
buying
3
Lamborghini
kids.
yachts.
Do you know, Lamborghini yacht. Imagine how much money you got for a Lamborghini yacht. Forget the $6,000 holiday to Turkey, mate. You got a Lamborghini yacht. Yes, but he's, I think, you know, I'm not that interested in him anymore. But I was a big fan on the way up, like when he was fighting, like the Eddie Alvarez fight and all that stuff. He was magic, but
you couldn't not watch it.
You couldn't not watch it.
Because the story behind it was incredible. Yeah. And I would still, if he fought, I would still watch it.
Oh, of course, we'll watch it.
But I wouldn't necessarily be backing him the way that I would have done 10 years ago.
And I'm not hungry sitting here with you now, like, I've got to see Conor fight anymore. Do you know what I mean?
Conor next,
but if, again, like you said, if he was fighting next month, I'm fucking watching it. Do you know what I'm saying? But I tell you what I think is his game plan now. It's not obviously not money, right? He's won the title, so he's kind of got that out. To me, the only thing I can think from listening to him talk and whatever is he wants to come back, have one fight to get, get his beak wet again. Then I think he'd want to fight Poirier to get that out of the way. And then he's obviously looking at the title, and who's got the title is his old mate's friend, Makhachev. Yeah. And if he beats him, which he won't, can't see, he wouldn't. But then he's like, in his mind, I think he's going, Khabib might come back, Khabib. But I can't see him beating them guys. What I can see happening though, and I've said this on, I don't know if I said it on here or someone else's podcast I was on, that I think his next fight back will be Justin Gaethje. I think he'll come and take Gaethje because I think he sees that as a good fight for him.
That's a hard way back.
It's a hard way back, but Gaethje's just been fucking flattened, hasn't he? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that was a fight.
That was a fucking... And that's a knockout as well.
Mate, Holloway is the man. I've always said that, like, question you hear on podcasts all the time, like, who's your like favourite fighter? Who do you love to meet? Max. Like, there's nothing about that dude I don't like. He's like super down to earth, super chill, like always takes his kids everywhere he goes. He still surfs and all this stuff. But when he fights, man, like, I will watch every one of his fights from the first minute to the last minute. And not one of those fights where you're kind of a bit distracted. I'm like, boom. Because he's just great, man. Yeah. And that one is the prime example, was beating him up for 4 minutes and 50 seconds and then went, fuck it, let's risk it. Let's go. You're like, really? Yeah. And then to finish like that?
Against an animal like Gaethje as well. But I think he's special as well in a lot of ways that, like, a loss just seems to roll off him. Yeah. It just doesn't seem like it's like whether he wins or loses, it just seems like he's almost forgotten about it next time. He's just fighting again, And I think that goes a long way because I think that's part of Conor's problem too. He kind of seems like angry, festered up now, doesn't he? Every time you see him, he's like, fucking... Now, it's easy for me to say without a Lamborghini yacht sitting here talking to you, isn't it? But do you know what I'm saying? I think there's elements of that with him too. But I'll watch him fight if he comes back.
Yeah, 100%. I would 100% watch it, no doubt.
Yeah, if I gave you the over-under on him winning another UFC title, what are you saying? Yes or no?
I don't think he wins another title.
I can't see it myself, but he's been sort of floating out the idea of fighting for a 170 title, hasn't he? So,
like, 170 is not his weight.
No.
He was best at... Well, I mean, he was best at 45. He looked best at 55. 70, he's not big enough. And, like, he's packed on all this muscle, but he doesn't move the same. He's not the same fighter. And, like, he moved so well. He was so fluid and so free with his shots. That's what made him how good he was. Like, against Alvarez at 155, like, again, probably one of his best performances. And he just looked like everything was on autopilot. There was no, I've got to throw this shot, this combination. Stuff just came out according to what Eddie was throwing. And like, since he's fought at 170, he just doesn't look that way. Yeah. And those guys, they're big. And if you were making 45, like, yeah, fair enough, maybe you were cutting a lot, and he was. Like, he looked skin and bones when he was fighting 45. But if you could make that, like, at 170, if you're a natural 170, you're a small 170. If you were making 45. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think that's his weight class. It is now because he's put on so much muscle, but...
All natural, I'm assuming. What do you think? Well, the creatine's good in Dublin, is it?
Yeah, I'm sure the other stuff starting with a C is good in Dublin as well from the stories
I
I've
was going
heard.
to say, woo!
But no, I mean, yeah, that's the way that he put it on, the speed he put it on, and he wasn't in the testing pool. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
What are you saying, bro? I don't understand.
I think it's suspect.
Yeah, I know nothing. I know nobody. Yeah.
Yeah.
But do you have any sort of from rugby background? Is steroids a thing in rugby at all?
There's rumours of it. There's a lot of rumours of it in and around like South African rugby.
Is it?
In like college level and stuff like those guys, they're all monsters. Like South African rugby team.
What's college level? How old are we talking here?
So it's like sort of 16 to 18, 16
It's
to
too
19.
young to be doing that shit, and it
Some of
fucking
them
hell.
do that. They push it through, and like there was a story that broke, I think last year at some point, that basically a professional rugby player over there came out and basically said like, yeah, my college not just encouraged but forced us to take performance enhancing substances whilst we were at college. And you look at them, these guys coming through playing the under-21s in the like under-21s World Cup, like they're just huge. They look like full-grown blokes. And you look at the other teams, there's like that's not like you can see it to a point.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe they are just built different. Maybe they all grew up on the farm and all that kind of stuff. But that only goes so far.
Could also be both as well, couldn't it? You could also be built different, grew up on a farm and on steroids. You know what I mean? And I think that's what people miss too. It's either black or white, isn't it? You know what I mean? Whereas I know people that were naturally fucking jacked and looked like that anyway, but then got on some gear and just got that extra little piece out of it. Because I was quite dumb to this stuff. I didn't know anything about steroids. I've never done them, but I never knew anything or anyone that was doing them consciously till I was like, 26, I suppose. Do you know what I mean? When I was younger, I was just oblivious to it.
Yeah, but it's like that's what you were saying then about using it to be like the 1%. If you're already genetically gifted, that's the best way to do them.
Yeah.
Because if you have to take them to get to even be competitive with the best guys, say the best guys are up here, and you need to take steroids to get here, then you're never going to make up this gap.
No, right.
You'll always be here. Whereas if you can get to there based off like physical prowess and then use them for that extra like 10%, that's the best way, in my opinion. And that's why you see, all the sprinters doing it. Like the fastest 10 times ever recorded in a 100-meter sprint, 9 of those people have been popped.
Is that
The
right?
only one who hasn't is Usain Bolt. And people are like, oh yeah, well he was clean. Well, every single one of his training partners has tested positive, except for him. So like, and he is, for those years that he was competing, he was the saviour of athletics. People were getting bored of athletics. And then this big guy comes across with his big personality and beaming smile and fist bumping the kid who was carrying the stuff for him. Like, he saved athletics. So they're never going to bury that.
No.
Like,
they know where they're bred.
but they're always going to bury it.
Yeah, of course.
Like, so he was also built very, very different to everybody else who competed in that event. Like, he was very well, produced for that event. Like, his running gait is what made him so much better than that, because he was 6 inches taller than everybody else he was competing against.
Yep.
So he was literally built for it.
Yeah.
But I do think there was also something in there.
It has to be, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
I won't mention who it is, but I spoke to a guy who competed at the CrossFit Games.
Yeah.
And I was just in the conversation, and someone was asking about steroids in the CrossFit Games. He said, yeah, everyone's on them.
Yeah.
And he was like, but what about so-and-so? And he said, he's on them. What about so-and-so? He's on them. And he said, but what about, he said, mate, let me just stop you.
Yeah.
He said,
Everyone
every
is
single
on them.
fucking one's on steroids. There's no point asking the question. He said, even me. Like, I was on steroids, and the guy was kind of like, I can't believe you're on steroids, you know? And it was a bit weird, but he's like, yeah, so his opinion on it, the reason I say CrossFit was because his opinion on it was from doing that.
Yeah.
Who I'm knocking CrossFit, but they're not at an elite level of athleticism like a Usain Bolt or someone like that.
Yeah.
He was like, they're all on it, man.
It's just recovery, right? Like, the certain types of steroids obviously have different benefits, but the biggest benefit across the board is that by using them, you can recover faster. By recovering faster, you can train more. By training more, you get more adaptation, so you get better quicker, blah, blah, blah. And that just perpetually goes round. So I do think it is used in almost every high-level sport ever. Rugby would be no different, I imagine.
Yep.
I just know that over here, as a professional rugby player, the testing is incredibly stringent. Like, it would be very hard to get through testing.
Is it? No.
Yeah, it's like they will just turn up randomly at different times in the year and test everyone.
Yeah.
So like it would be very hard to get around it.
Right.
Doesn't make it impossible,
No.
but because the drugs are always ahead of the tests, that's, we know that. But like, it would be very hard. As a UK high level athlete, it's incredibly hard to be like to not be clean, because you will get tested like absolutely randomly.
Yeah.
So
That ruins things. Do you remember everyone speaks about TRT Vitor Belfort?
Yeah.
That always comes to mind when people talk about steroids, because if you haven't seen him, look up Vitor in his prime. There's a famous photo right there. I don't know if you've seen it. It's for him side by side with himself from 2012 and 2017.
Yeah.
And one looks like the best body you've ever seen in the world, and the other one's like a deflated Homer Simpson look.
Literally.
Yeah, and it's the same guy 5 years apart, but
Yeah.
you make up your own mind, kids.
Yeah, exactly right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how about boxing and stuff, mate? You're a boxing man.
I've never really followed it that much.
Yeah.
I've worked with a couple of boxers.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Nobody super high level guys who are like they turned pro and were doing their first sort of 5 pro fights and that kind of stuff.
Nice.
But I've never really followed it. I don't know why. Just never got into it.
I got you. But we're in jiu-jitsu now, so that's
Yeah,
all
exactly.
that matters, right?
That's all my brain needs. I don't
exactly.
have time for hobbies, so one is enough.
Yeah. Do you watch jiu-jitsu and stuff too?
I try to.
Because that's quite tough. Like we was talking about earlier, like jiu-jitsu is a participation sport. If you don't do jiu-jitsu, there's no fucking way on earth you're watching it. And even if you do compete and do it, you're probably still not watching it anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Like some matches you're just watching. Not much. A lot of the time, like not much necessarily happens, and unless you know the nuance, as a spectator sport, if you don't know the sport, you're not going to watch it.
No.
And that's where stuff like ADCC and CJI have done so well, because you've got my business partner's about to walk in.
Oh, we'll wrap this up pretty sharp, mate. I'm encroaching on your time. We're near our window, aren't we?
Just finishing up a podcast. Give us you can come in, but just finishing up a podcast. Nice haircut. Where were we?
CGI,
so I
ADC.
think that really helps, because people will understand what's happening.
Yep.
You don't have to know jiu-jitsu to be able to watch no-gi grappling. But I think even I don't have Flow Grappling account. I don't.
What?
I've got.
Traitor! How dare you?
Well, now they put everything free like 3 days later on YouTube.
I was
anyway.
gonna say I've got
Why
YouTube.
would you pay for it? So yeah, I'll watch some stuff on YouTube, but I don't go into the depths of it. I just don't have time.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there
We're
too,
caught
mate.
up on other stuff,
Yep.
so that's
Boom.
life, isn't it?
Well, thank you very much for doing
No,
this, mate.
nice
I
one.
really appreciate you.
Nice one, my pleasure.
Before I finish up, I always ask people an important question. We mentioned rugby, but we always talk about football at the end, just for a bit of a laugh. Who's your football team, mate? And there is a correct answer.
I'm probably going to get it wrong. I don't really follow football that much. When I was younger, I used to support Liverpool, so I'll go Liverpool.
That is the worst answer, but never mind. The correct answer was Chelsea for next time.
Yeah, it's definitely
but
not.
mate, brilliant. Thanks so much for that. I appreciate you, mate.
Pleasure.
I always finish with the fists up like this. Squeeze the neck. Boom!